Democrats are finally turning the tables on Donald Trump and MAGA on the Trump and MAGA turf. Democrats going on state regime media, which calls itself Fox, calling out Donald Trump, calling out Maria Bartiromo, calling out the Trump propagandists. No one's doing it right now as good as Ro Khanna, or certainly he's one of the top people who are going on state regime media and calling out Fox. Superb job here. Democratic Congress member Ro Khanna perfectly calls out Maria Bartiromo with receipts, with facts about just how bad Donald Trump has been for the economy and all the jobs that Donald Trump has cost our country. Here, play this clip.
And I got to say, this deal seems a lot better than the horrendous Obama deal, because Obama allowed Iran to have access to $100+ billion. Let's not forget all that cash, cold cash that was on a plane headed to Iran, which what did they do with that money, Congressman? They used that money to build up their ballistic weapons and support terrorist proxies. Am I wrong?
Maria, first of all, the president has lost 72,000 manufacturing jobs under his watch. So I wish you were right, because his rhetoric was about rebuilding Ohio, rebuilding Pennsylvania, but he has resisted having an industrial investment bank to actually support American manufacturers that would make things that we're currently importing.
No, I don't agree with that. That's not true.
On the China committee. Let me just finish. I mean, it's true he hasn't put an industrial investment bank. It's true that he's lost 70,000 manufacturing jobs. I'm the top Democrat on the China committee. We've been urging him to do a CHIPS Act for American pharmaceutical key starting material. He hasn't done that. Yes, he's attracted a lot of foreign direct investment that's gone to tech companies in my district. But what about the heartland and the building up of places that were deindustrialized? That simply hasn't happened. It hasn't happened in Vice President Vance's hometown of Middleton, Ohio. But on
then you have Democratic Congress member Ro Khanna on Maria Bartiromo perfectly making the case why Donald Trump's memorandum of understanding, whatever you even want to call it, is far inferior, far weaker, far worse than former President Obama's JCPOA. As Aaron Rupert said, note that Bartiromo acknowledges he's making important points and good ones. She even can't handle what Ro Khanna does right here. Play this clip.
You and your colleagues just want to upend this president's agenda. Is that what's happening right now with this MOU with Iran?
No, I actually support the agreement and bringing the war to an end. I have always supported bringing the war to an end. I will say, though, that this agreement is not as good as what the JCPOA was. And let me just give you three factual reasons. First, under the JCPOA, 97% of the enriched uranium was removed from Iran. Under this agreement, it simply dilutes it. Second, the JCPOA had the Security Council resolution as a force of law with intrusive IAEA inspections. That still has not been achieved. And most problematically, we're going to be on the hook to raise $300 billion for Iran's economic development and reconstruction. Not U.S. taxpayer money, but raising that money. Why aren't we focused on the economic development and reconstruction of Middleton, Ohio, Johnstown, Pennsylvania, or putting $300 billion to be raised for childcare or healthcare for Americans?
Well, all very important points and good ones. Let me just say that President Trump has made the comment that at some point in the future, when things calm down, the U.S. will go back into Iran, get that uranium, destroy that uranium, whether destroyed in Iran or in America or somewhere else. They are planning on getting that.
That's what happens. You go on state regime media loaded with the facts, as Congressmember Khanna does, and he's bringing the heat right here. And then he says to Maria Bartiromo, and what is it that you want to do with women? You want all women who have changed their maiden names now as part of whatever you're trying to do for Donald Trump's voter suppression. You want all women to go and show their birth certificates when they go and they vote. What are you talking about, Maria Bartiromo? And I think he just walks her right into it, where, again, this is why Donald Trump absolutely hates Ro Khanna and wants him off Fox. But here's what Ro Khanna did with Maria Bartiromo. Let's play it.
It's the law.
I
Elections
agree.
have been lost by a couple of votes. So just to say, oh, it's not a lot, that's not an answer, sir.
But people have been fear-mongering that when that's not an issue in the election. And the reality is you have in cases of women, some of the in the cases of some people who are married, that you want them, if they've changed their name, to go and have to prove that with their birth certificate to a registrar
What's
that
the
they
problem?
changed
Get
the
your
name.
birth certificate. Yes, that's the law. You can't vote if you're not an American citizen. Yes, get your birth certificate. Yes, that's exactly right.
No
problem.
You know what?
I wanted a copy of my birth certificate. I went online. I got the birth certificate. I've got it. It took a week. No problem.
You know, I'm proud of my birth certificate because I'm a bicentennial baby born in Philadelphia, but I don't think people should have to go get their birth certificates and go to the registrar. We have a system that is a system that allows people to vote if they're citizens. And by the way, if you're not a citizen and you vote, you should have enormous penalties, consequences. I'm for making sure that
but we don't know because we don't have
who are voting illegally. That should be instead of putting the burden on American citizens. Why don't we just make clear that we're enforcing the law? If someone it's illegal to vote, it's a felony to vote if you're undocumented. Enforce the law. Don't have every American who was born here have to go show all their paperwork all the time.
That's the only way to do it. You have to have a citizenship proof. That's the only way to do it. I mean, that's your citizenship proof. It's not on the backs of America. It's your responsibility to ensure that you're doing it lawfully. Look.
And now we know that Donald Trump's continuously been attacking Ro Khanna over with these like weird racist memes like this. Sleazebag Ro Khanna, lies. Democrat, don't allow this lying sleazebag on Fox. To which Congressmember Khanna goes, congratulations. Sorry for distracting your dad with this important work, Don Jr. That's because Donald Trump kept on posting things like that. And by the way, this is what Ro Khanna has continued to do over and over and over again. His last appearance with Maria Bartiromo, she had an extended crash out after Ro Khanna made the case that the rich should pay more taxes. Here, play this clip.
Story. We just did the story in New York, how Kathy Hochul is moving the threshold down. You're going to pay a pied-à-terre tax if you have a second home in New York, not if your house is worth $5 million. No. Your house is valued at $1 million. Then you're going to pay a pied-à-terre tax if you have a second home in New York. Do you agree with that?
Yes, because you know what I believe, Maria, that the economy in this country is unfair and lopsided. Too few people, including in my district,
the top 1% pay 45% of the tax in New York. The top 1% pay the majority of taxes in this country. You know it, and I do.
Maria, let me say this, and you may agree with me. Look, you can't have a country where a few people in a few places control the majority of the nation's wealth. That's not a democracy, and it's not sustainable. In world history, you've seen revolution when that happens. In Silicon Valley, you have 19 billionaires who have 12% of the economy. So what I'm saying is, if America's been good to you, you can do good for America. You can pay a little bit of tax so people have health care, child care, a living wage.
And they do. I know plenty of billionaires. All they do is spend money. Hey, I know plenty of billionaires. All they do is spend money on health care.
Do you not believe that we have a wealth in
They send money to education. They spend money on the arts. They send all their money, and they send all their money to all of these nonprofits. I know plenty of billionaires that do just that.
But they have an obligation to pay some tax so that we can have public goods and healthcare, childcare, and education.
They pay the majority of it.
But they're not.
The rich pay the majority of the tax in this country.
Warren Buffett has said.
No, you're mixing up words. That's not true. He was talking about capital gains tax.
Let me just finish.
I know exactly what Warren Buffett said.
Why is capital
gains? Was talking about capital gains taxes. He was not talking about income taxes. I know
but
exactly
he's saying
what Warren
he pays
Buffett
less
said.
tax.
No, because
he pays
he's not
less
paying
tax
a
than his
salary.
teachers.
He's not getting a salary. He's not getting income.
And that's most of the billionaires.
All stock.
And that's most of the billionaires in this country. It's not fair.
You're mixing up taxes.
Right.
I know all about taxes. Don't try it. You're mixing up taxes. You got capital gains tax and you got income state tax.
Yeah, so would you agree that we shouldn't have, in this kind of wealth inequality in an AI world, which is capital biased, that we shouldn't have millionaires plus having less rates on capital gains than someone who's a teacher or a farmer or a machinist is paying on their W-2s?
I don't want to crush investments. I want people to encourage. I want people to feel encouraged to buy and invest into the markets and put it in their 401k. The way to create wealth overall long-term is to invest in the stock market. That's 100%. I believe that. The way to long-term wealth creation. Yeah, but 50%
of people don't do that.
They do it in their 401k plans. More people than you know are invested in equities.
Or when he was bringing up some great points to one of the Fox hosts, McCallum, she's just like, you just don't know the way language works. You don't understand how language even happens, Congressmember Khanna. Here, play this clip right here.
Fairly reasonable. Do you believe that it was not insulting and in violation of everything we believe in to threaten to wipe out 91 million Americans? Would Ronald Reagan have ever done that? Would any other American president have ever threatened to wipe out 91 million people? I don't think Reagan did that at the height of the Cold War.
I guess what
FDR probably didn't do that even when we were fighting Nazism.
What I'm looking at is...
No, but answer that question, Martha. Would FDR have said, let's just wipe out the German people?
I can easily answer your question. I mean, we know who tried to actually wipe out entire populations in World War II.
Yes,
we know the kind of backbone and spine that it took on the part of the United States of America to end those tyrannies.
With morality.
But what I'm seeing is someone who is
Donald Trump has no morality.
I think you have to... I'm kind of surprised, actually, that people haven't, that you don't get how the language works.
I get it if he's a real estate dealer. I don't get it when you're president of the United States with the inheritance of people.
But you're more concerned about the language than the outcome.
No, I'm concerned about our values. I'm concerned that no American president would have done this. Do you think Ronald Reagan would have used this language?
No, because Ronald Reagan isn't President Trump.
Do you think Abraham Lincoln would have?
FDR.
Do you think George Washington would have? Do you think he said, let's wipe out the British people? Donald Trump has compromised every moral standing we have as a nation. What makes America...
Now, one of the people who Congressmember Khanna credits as being a major inspiration for him, Bernie Sanders. And as I said, Bernie Sanders, Democrats taking the fight right now to MAGA Republicans and calling them out right now, and reclaiming these critical issues that the American people are focused on and not being ashamed about it. Here's a speech that Bernie Sanders just gave in the past day or so, where Bernie Sanders talks about why billionaires need to pay more taxes. And it's basic, and I think we can all agree with this right here. Here's what Bernie Sanders has to say. Let's play this clip.
And what the American people understand is the time is long overdue for the wealthiest people in this country to start paying their fair share of taxes. And I want to give you an example. Give me a moment here to give you an example of what this inequality is all about. I proposed and introduced legislation to establish a 5% annual wealth tax on the less than 1,000 billionaires in this country. 938 billionaires who are worth over $8 trillion. All right. So I want to tell you what a 5% wealth tax on these fewer than 1,000 people would accomplish. If this legislation were to pass in its first year, it would provide every man, woman, and child in a household making less than $150,000 with a $3,000 direct payment, $12,000 for a family of four. It would provide the necessary resources to build 7 million units of low-income and affordable housing and put hundreds of thousands of workers to work, union jobs, building homes. It would expand Medicare to cover dental, vision, and hearing. It would guarantee universal child care. It would expand home health care so that seniors and people with disabilities can live with dignity in their own homes. It would restore health care to the 15 million Americans who are losing it because of Trump's big, beautiful bill. All of that and more would be paid for by a 5% annual tax on the wealth of billionaires. Nobody with less than $1 billion in wealth would pay a nickel more in taxes. My critics claim that this legislation is punitive. It's confiscatory. We're picking on these terrible billionaires. And here is the irony, for better or for worse. If this legislation would pass tomorrow, Elon Musk would pay $39 billion more in taxes, leaving him, I know this is tough for Elon, with just $737 billion in which to survive. I know, hey, you know what the price of gas is right now? You know what food is? Guy has $737 billion. What do you want?
Now, here's what Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher writes. I know I sound like a broken record, but Ro Khanna is giving a masterclass to other elected officials in what it looks like to be pro-worker, pro-working class politician right now. No hesitation, no hedging, no apologies. More of this, please. Congressmember Khanna posted the following message as well. Obama inspires us to not lose faith and keep fighting for justice. An important reminder on June 19th that the rights on paper are not enough if they are not enforced in practice. Freedom was declared in 1863, but many people remained enslaved until 1865. We still have much work to do to bend the moral arc of the universe towards justice. He also called out J.D. Vance and said, you talk about coming from Middleton, Ohio, J.D. Vance? And that was forgotten by both parties. I get it as someone who saw Fairless Works, a steel plant, shut down in Lower Bucks County, Pennsylvania. The problem is, JD, you lost nearly 70,000 manufacturing jobs since in office. Those are just the facts, man. There has been no vision, no industrial investment bank to support factories here to make things we currently import, no investment in new trade schools, no plan to buy more steel and invest in factories so we could go to full capacity. It's just a bunch of empty rhetoric from you all, just a bunch of empty rhetoric indeed. Again, powerful words there from Congressmember Khanna. Let me know what you think about all of that, everybody. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers, and thanks for watching.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.